Hello, I'm Bill Dearden, Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Hershey Foods Corporation. I'm delighted to welcome you as a member of the Hershey Foods Corporation team.
My dad's mother died when he was 13 years old, and I guess his dad was struggling to care for my dad, his younger brother, and his younger sister, because he was often unemployed and just there were difficulties.
Neighbors saw the potential in Will and said, I know a place that he can go and get a good education and they will take care of him.
And she recommended it to my grandfather, who checked into it and subsequently sent my dad and his brother Jim to the Milton Hershey School. And at that point in time, my dad was 13 years old. I think it absolutely shaped who he became as a person, as a businessman, in all aspects of his life. I think in a lot of ways he thought of Milton Hershey as the dad that he never had, and I'm pretty certain as his career progressed, it was Milton Hershey who he was trying to please or who he was trying to live up to.
And the kids amount to something, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Thank goodness for that.
That they never thought of themselves as poor orphans because of all of the wonderful things that they were given. My dad had a long name. His full name is William Edgar Chambers Dearden Jr. And my mother tells the story.
And Will gave the graduation address. And so afterwards, when they presented the diplomas, Mr. Hershey shook Will's hand, and he said to Will, I am so glad you have a long name because I wanted to congratulate you on a wonderful address.
I know that my dad was really proud of that. He really knew from graduation forward that he did want to somehow repay Mr. Hershey and the school for everything that they had done for him. I think the central theme of his life really was gratitude, giving back, trying to make, again, the people who invested in him proud.
We met at Albright College. I was sitting on a bank at the school all by myself, and he comes walking by and he sees me and he stops over and starts to talk to me. And we talked for a long time and we had a lot in common and we kind of liked each other. So every day that I would sit on the bank, he'd come by and we'd talk and we fell in love. From Ursinus, he went to Harvard for 2 years. And while he was at Harvard, we got married.
Well, he was a man of faith, for sure. In importance in his life, it was Mr. Hershey, the Hershey Company, God, and then a distant fourth would probably have been his family. I'm joking because I always felt like he was a really good dad. I felt really loved by him.
I know that you were rising up the corporate ladder and were headed for great things with Dun & Bradstreet when you had a call to come back to the school in a very insignificant position, comparatively speaking. Why did you go back to the school and leave Dun & Bradstreet for that job?
In his mind, I think it kind of came together like, well, this is my opportunity. This is how I can repay them.
It was because I often said to myself, where would you be today had it not been for that school when you needed it? And I certainly wouldn't have been where I am today had it not been for that school. So it was easy for me to say, yes, I'd like to go back and repay that debt which I feel I owe, because Mr. Hershey never said we owed him anything. His feeling was, if you go out and be a good citizen, that'll be payment enough for me.
He started out after that assistant to the chairman of the board. He moved into the sales department and had sales positions, and then just kept getting promoted within the sales department. And then it was sales and marketing, and then it was vice president of sales and marketing, and then group vice president, so it kept taking on more and more responsibility within the company. From there, then he became CEO of the company. He really is credited as the guy who woke up the sleeping giant, so to speak.
Bill Dearden is the man who, in fact, was that boy that Milton Hershey referred to in his hope that someday one of his boys would come down to run his company.
To then have the opportunity to come back to Hershey to work, first at the school and then in the chocolate business, was something that was very important to me.
He said to me one time, "I love what I'm doing. I wouldn't have anything different. I really love my job."
He was a really, really visible presence on the Milton Hershey School campus from the time that he graduated.
He never missed a day of work. He was very dedicated. He put all his heart and soul into what he was doing.
When he was on the board and CEO, he took every new board member to the Milton Hershey School, and they would sit down and have lunch or dinner, go to student homes, just walk around the campus so that they would have an understanding of what it was that they were working for.
I think he was very happy with his life, and he had done all that he could as far as getting to the top.
A girlfriend and I would always go to the Hershey drugstore, and we'd sit at the soda fountain and have a Coke and a bag of chips and maybe a candy bar or something, and then we would walk to the company because her sister worked there as a secretary, and at 5 o'clock the doors would open and this big rush of people would come out, and I would be waiting, and it'd be 5 after, 10 after, 20 after, whatever, and I'd still be out there waiting, entertaining myself, you know, doing cheers, cartwheels, or, you know, whatever. And so I would get to go in to the building and pass through some of the other offices, arriving at my dad's office. You know, he always acted like he was surprised to see me, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't. I'm pretty sure he expected that on Fridays. And off we'd go, hand in hand, walking down the street home. And that was just a really, really fun memory. There were a group of Milton Hershey graduates who, again, just held my dad in high esteem. And they wanted to do something, I think, to kind of honor my dad and get him written into the history of the school in some fashion. They wanted to purchase a place that they could have for graduates where they could meet.
And then they had a dedication, the home to Will. You know, a big crowd and that kind of stuff came. And at that point, though, Will was too sick to get up and speak.
The dedication was really, I was sort of emotional. I think I kind of cried quietly throughout the whole dedication because my dad was really sick by then. And we weren't even sure that he was going to be able to go, but he was bound and determined that he was going to go. He was very, very moved by it. My sister spoke that day.
I can imagine no more perfect place for an alumni center that bears my father's name than Glendale, a unit like the one that was my father's home, a place where, like Mr. Hershey, my father's life, his work, his philosophy can inspire others for years to come.
I want them to know how much the school and how much Mr. Hershey meant to them, and that as students and graduates, that they try to go out into the world and tell other people about the school.
I truly believe that the reason why he was very successful, why the company was very successful, he honestly, from the core of his being, believed in what he was doing.
But I don't think he did all the things for himself. He did things for other people. He was very giving, but I do know that he would never have been an ordinary person. He just would not have let that happen. I want them to know that he spent his whole life dedicated to the school and to Mr. Hershey to try to repay the debt he thought he owed them.
He really tried to teach us the lessons of gratitude too, and being grateful for what you have and taking nothing for granted.